Happy Friday, MJ traders and investors. It's Rod with Power Group. Welcome back on the Pursuit of Wealth, your home for MJ stocks, crypto assets, and interviews. As I mentioned, it's Friday, April 14th. Hope you're well. And in this video, we're going to be discussing Germany legalization, what that rollout's going to look like. I'll give some of my thoughts and opinions, but essentially getting a ton of questions from the community about this. Is this finally going to be the catalyst that lifts us out of this brutal multi-year bear market and potentially start a new bull market? Or do we have more pain ahead? You know, there's tons of media covering, there's tons of articles covering this. So I'm going to go over some of these articles. I'll give my thoughts and opinions. Before we get to it though, make sure to smash the like, help support me, and the channel doesn't cost you anything. If you're new, you can subscribe, tick the bell to be notified on any future videos or when I go live. As I mentioned, Germany just recently unveiled a scaled down approach toward legalization and adult use of MJ. A lot of people are asking, when could we potentially see this take effect? And before I get into this next piece, just remember, we're dealing with MJ and we're dealing with the government. So when it comes to governments around the world, they're very, very slow. When I say what this article says, that it's going to be recreational use is going to be legal in Germany by the end of 2023, I'm a little skeptical. I'm probably going to say 2024. If it happens in 2023, great. But you know, you're probably with me. We've seen time and time again where we've been let down on timelines. So I'm not going to say by 2023. My full expectations are going to be in early 2024. If it happens any earlier than that, great. But moving on, Germany waters down plan to legalize MJ after talks with Brussels. As I mentioned, the German government on Wednesday watered down plans to legalize MJ, presenting legislation that would allow private cultivation and distribution through nonprofit groups, but not widespread sales of the drug in shops. So that's very important. Also, it says here 25 grams of recreational MJ for personal consumption would also be made legal, but I'm seeing some conflicting information here. I'm pretty sure it's 30 grams. I'm not sure where they got that from in this article, but I'll show you a couple more here in just a moment. But Wednesday's announcement comes after Berlin held talks with the European Commission on a cornerstone paper the German government issued in October. They did not give a timeline for the plan, however. Moving on to a Business of MJ article. Europe takes major step to wholesale MJ reform as German adult use plan is unveiled. So in a major break from the European era of prohibition, Germany and Czechia are set to legalize the use of MJ. So not just Germany, we've got Czechia following suit as well. Following months of talks with the European Commission, the neighboring countries appear to have negotiated a suitable legal pathway to wholesale MJ reform. German Health Minister Karl Lauterbach said that this should be a model for Europe and the rest of the EU as a whole, which is very exciting to think about. Because as we know, once a few start to fall, it's just a domino effect thereafter. He went on to say that the aim of legislation was to promote youth safety, adding that efforts to combat MJ have failed as consumers have increased and the black market has increased. So it's time we do something about it, essentially. Germany's initial plan had been for MJ to be sold in specialist shops and to be over 18. However, following European Commission objections based on international drug conventions and rules around free movement of goods in the European Union, it has had to tether these initial plans. So now they're taking a two-pillar track. Instead, the federal government has proposed a two-pillar model for controlled recreational MJ supply to adults, focusing on quality control, consumer health, and minimizing the black market. The first pillar involves private and community non-commercial home cultivation with strict legal frameworks. MJ will be legalized for private use, with all those over 21 permitted to possess up to 30 grams, so there's that 30 grams that I was talking about, and cultivate up to 3 plants for personal consumption. There will also be unspecified number of pilot scientific studies in various locations on an opt-in basis. These are set to last 5 years and will be monitored to determine the impact of legal sales and consumption and the black market. Also, Czechia, as I mentioned, is moving as well. Last week, Czech Republic said that it had approved a new drug strategy to run until the end of 2025. That includes the introduction of strictly regulated market in MJ. Czechia told the Business of MJ that it is aiming to introduce licensed sale of MJ through registered retail outlets. In addition to the harvested recreational MJ, members may also receive from the association seeds and cuttings for self-cultivation. The sale of harvested MJ, so flower, is only permitted to members, no disclosure to third parties, max 25 grams of MJ per day, max 50 gram per month, max 7 seeds or 5 cuttings per month, and distribution to adolescents under the age of 21 is limited to an amount of 30 grams per month, in addition to a limit on the permitted THC content, limit to be clarified. So we'll get some more information on that. This should be reflected in the variety selection. Consumption on the association's premises is prohibited, as in public consumption near schools, daycare centers, etc., and in pedestrian zones until 8 p.m., which is pretty self-explanatory. At the time, there is a ban on selling alcohol, tobacco, and or stimulants and antioxidants. There is also a general advertising ban for the associations and for MJ. Factual information is permissible. Minimum protective measures: burglar-proof premises, fencing, prevent access by unauthorized parties, third parties, right? So as we know in Canada, same thing. If you're going to cultivate, you need to have, cameras, surveillance, and you need to have a fence going around the whole premises, right? Also, Germany unveils scaled-down recreational MJ legalization plan. This is from MJ Biz Daily. Nonprofit associations would be allowed to jointly cultivate MJ for adult use purposes and distribute it to members for their own consumption. This part of the new plan is expected to be implemented in 2023. Regional pilot projects with commercial supply chains would be rolled out for a limited period of time. The aim of these trials would be to collect data and support future public policy. Germany is the latest country to scrap some of these legalization initiatives and give a more watered-down approach. So again, Israel, Mexico, New Zealand have all unveiled ambitions to legalize and regulate adult use MJ, only to see those plans fizzle out for various reasons. So the new scale-back plan aims to control quality, prevent the transfer of contaminated substances, protect minors, protect the health of consumers, and curb the black market. Scrolling down here, so the 2-column model, penalty-free possession would be allowed for personal consumption of up to 25 grams of MJ. The German government said it might ban membership in more than one association. Other details include up to three female flowering plants would be allowed for home cultivation. It's 4 here in Canada. The number of members per association could be capped at 500 with a minimum of age of 18. Members would also live in Germany. Reporting and documentation would be required for quantities produced and delivered. Membership fees would cover the association's expenses. The possibility of importing seeds from third-party countries for the associations is being examined. A general advertising ban would be imposed on associations for MJ, but the government said factual information is acceptable, as I mentioned. So details for this pillar were fleshed out as they were for the nonprofit pillar. Some key points include that project duration is expected to last 5 years. Approval of sales of edibles is also being examined. So that was something that I found interesting, that stood out. And the trial would be scientifically monitored and evaluated, and the results will be shared with the European partners and the EU Commission. A lot of this data is going to depend on the eventual continuation of other countries following suit, right? But all in all, it's fairly similar to the legalization and regulation here in Canada. I don't think any other country is going to be that much different than Canada. I think for the most part, it's all going to be fairly similar. But here in Canada, it's 30 grams, that we can possess, and it's also 30 grams that you can buy in one order. They have 10 milligrams THC limit in each pack, right? So you can't buy one item that has more than 10 milligrams for an edible or something like that, right? And then 4 plants you can have at home. But if you're wondering, a lot of people are asking, can Tilray go to $10 after adult use legalization of MJ in Germany? That's certainly possible. But again, I think that we're going to need something. This has sort of been known for a while now. I think we're going to need something bigger than that. I think we're going to need rescheduling or descheduling in the U.S. I think we're going to need legalization of medical in the U.S. or some sort of, amendment to the MJ Act here in Canada or in the U.S. We know that New Jersey is trying to pass legislation at the state level to remove 280E tax code. That would be a huge benefit and really pave the way for other states as well. And then, if the MJ Act here in Canada gets revised, whether it be labeling, whether it be packaging, whatever they're going to do to help, marketing, their taxation's a big one as well. So it's said that anywhere from 30 to 40% of companies' revenue here in Canada are going towards excise taxes, right? Not just sales tax, but then also excise tax. And then you've got the U.S. Like I said, Curaleaf has spent over $340 million now to the U.S. government in taxes under 280E. So if we can get some sort of change to legislation changes toward, gearing toward taxation and easing of those regulations that end up benefiting producers, I think that's really going to knock us out of this bear market. But I'm skeptical that Germany, all on its own, is going to spark a new bull market. I think that the market's forward-looking, and we kind of already expected this. But something I want to bring up here is some companies that are going to benefit from adult use MJ legalization that I really like in Germany. First on the list was Aurora. I'm not a big fan of Aurora, I'll be completely honest with you. They have, they're barely even in the top 20 now in recreational market share here in Canada. But this could be, I'd probably use a lot less capital on this one, and then, a lot less capital for higher reward, right? So higher risk, higher reward. I probably wouldn't put that much capital into Aurora, but they should benefit greatly from this, in my opinion. Also, Canopy Growth, under the restructuring to cut costs and reduce expenses for money-losing operations, still a leader in medical device distribution, courtesy of its Storz & Bickel subsidiary, which manufactures the universally popular Volcano brand vaporizer. So nearly 4 years ago, Canopy had an all-cash transaction to acquire Storz & Bickel. It was approximately 145 million, so they're saying that it could benefit from that. I'm not a huge fan of Canopy in the Germany market, but I do hold it in my portfolio. But again, it's a low amount in my portfolio, probably around 5%. of my whole MJ portfolio. But I really like Curaleaf and I really like Tilray for Germany. And I think Tilray has about a 20% market share as of right now. I think that's what the CEO, Erwin Simon, said the last time that they were asked that question. But I really like Curaleaf as well as one of the beneficiaries here in Germany rollout. And like I said, Tilray, I'd say Tilray is probably my top pick, then Curaleaf, then Aurora, then Canopy. Just taking a look at the population here, 83.2 million as of 2021 in Germany. And then Czechia has 10.51 million as of 2021. And then Canada, 38.25 million. So almost 3 times the amount of people in Czechia and Germany. So that is a huge market, right? So this is not to be understated. This is going to be massive for these producers as they look toward profitability and growth. Also, the US, 331.9 million as of 2021, puts things into perspective and shows you that we're still not even through the first inning here in this thing we call MJ legalization and rollout, right? 126.7 million in Mexico. This is going to be another heavily underrated market, in my opinion. And then also today from MJ Moment, we had a top House Democrat and Republican congressman file a bill to prepare for federal MJ legalization. I know what you're thinking. This is like the 100th time we've seen this and nothing ever amounts from it. Well, I'm in the same boat, so I'm not really going to put too much, thought into it. But it is something that could very well happen in the not too distant future because, like I said, the U.S. is never first, but they're never last, right? And once they get started, they have the GDP, they have the population, they can just leapfrog every other country, right, and every other market because of how big they are, right? And it's just, the number one economy in the world, right? And then something to keep in mind as well is the NAFTA, right? North American Free Trade Agreement. That's between Canada, Mexico, and the United States. I think even on the Tilray call, they alluded to this a little bit in the earnings call that just happened here, and they talked about NAFTA. And again, the U.S. is never first, but they're never last. Is, Germany and the rest of the EU going to legalize? Is, Canada, is Mexico going to legalize? And then the United States is just going to sit there on the sidelines? I highly doubt it. And as a part of this North American Free Trade Agreement, it only makes sense that, the U.S. is probably going to be the last to the party. But when they join the party, it's going to be, the party doesn't start until they walk in, sort of thing, right? To quote the song. But, at the end of the day, it's easy the prices are very, very discouraging, right? It's hard we're getting investor fatigue. I, for one, I'm sick of seeing stock prices go down and down, but at the end of the day, I've seen this happen before. I know that MJ isn't going anywhere. We're still halfway through the first inning, right? We've got so much growth ahead of us. It's still federally illegal in the US. There's some countries that offer the death penalty just for simple possession. I mean, it's never been more clear that we are at the precipice of what is the medicine of the future. And Germany is going to be that, what's going to really, catapult the rest of the EU. It's going to be an example. And then, like I said, the U.S. is never first or never last. Mexico is going to be another huge underrated market. And it's just going to be one after the other, one after the other. One day you're going to wake up and it's just going to be this country after this country after this country. And eventually, prices finally going to start, catching up to fundamentals. Right now, the prices are at ludicrous levels, right? That's not going to be the case forever. So I'm taking advantage of it. I continue to dollar cost average. I added Organogram. I added Curaleaf today as well to my long-term MJ portfolio. I'm as bullish as ever on this industry. As brutal as it has been over the last couple of years, I finally think that we could be seeing some light at the end of the tunnel over the next few months. It may be 6 months before we finally see some relief. It's never been more clear. We're still halfway through the first inning, and this is a marathon. It's not a race, and I'm here for the long term. I'm going to be creating videos for the long term. And as long as I'm alive, I'll basically be on your computer forever. So going to end it there. Let me know what you think of this new rollout and Germany legalization. Do you think that we could potentially see other countries follow suit soon? What do you think of these new regulations? And would there be anything that you would add, change, like to see differently? Love hearing from you. Going to end it there, though. Thanks for joining us on The Pursuit of Wealth. It's Rob with Power Group. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again soon.